Every divorced woman I talked to has talked about empowerment, how she found herself, how she found her balance, how she found her confidence. And today's guest is going to share how running became that tool for her. So let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today our guest is Lisa. She is the Ella Go creator. She hosts 2 separate podcasts, and she's a running life coach. She herself is a fellow divorcee, and we're here to share her stories from the other side because transformation is always such a big part of that divorce next chapter. So welcome, Lisa. I'm excited to have you today.
I'm excited to be here, Erica. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start by just tell us a little bit about your story. Without, obviously, we don't do the details. This is about your transformation, but tell us a little bit about what brought you here.
So the story, the Cliff Note version, the story, basically, I believed in the hype of marriage. So I probably should have never gotten married, but I did what I thought I needed to do. I had to do because everyone else was doing it. Like, all the girls, or I should say, like when I was a kid, all the girls would be talking about getting married. And I'm like, I'm not thinking about that. And then in college, everyone's thinking about the white picket fence and, oh, I can't wait till I get married, have kids. I was not even thinking about that at all. I felt pressured. I remember turning 30 and everyone was like, so when are you going to get married? And I'm like, why do I have to? But I got pressured. And I got married. And through that whole journey, I lost myself. I lost who I was. I lost myself as a strong woman because I was single for a very long time. I traveled the world. I hung out with my girlfriends. I had such a great time. And when I got married, I lost who I was. And I don't think I was even mature enough to have gotten married. I didn't understand it. Maybe, I think back, I think to myself, I just shouldn't have never done it. So I then got divorced and he left me, although I would say a year prior, I knew this wasn't working. It was right after my daughter was born. I didn't even think I was going to have kids with him. And, I wasn't even sure. And I had my daughter, and obviously it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And when I had her, things shifted. And I would always say to my mom, I'm like, okay, Mom, if anything happens to me, I was already like saying things like that. I was like, he's probably, having another affair. Should I get a detective following him? And I kid you not, this is like a year before it all went down. I got really sick. 2013 in August, I got really sick. My stomach stopped digesting. I had gastroparesis. And that was the eye opener. Because the way he looked at me, even if he wasn't in love with me as a human being, he did not care. And I thought, whoa, wow, okay, not even as a human being. And, we went to couples counseling, here I was trying to salvage it. And I think I was salvaging it for my daughter. And I was afraid to leave because I just was afraid, but he did me the favor and he left me. And then that's when I had to like pick up the pieces and empower myself. And I learned to do that through running and of course therapy.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to, the fear. We know it's not the right fit. whether you're in a similar boat of feeling like you should have never got married, or you really did love this person when it started, but now it's not the right fit, but being too afraid to move forward and thinking that we need to try and fix it for the kids. I think that it speaks to the dream, again, this culture and this dream that we all want to have the one family forever, right? We all want to have the 50th wedding anniversary, the fairy tale story. And for some it works, and for some it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. But we do fight for our kids. I fought for the 2 years to try and fix it for my son, ignoring my own needs for the whole first year, just trying to be like, we have to fix this because we can't have a broken family. We can't do this. We have to fix it. So, and it was a gift, right? It was a gift that my ex was cheating. It was a gift that yours decided to leave. They forced us into a reality that we knew, but we were unwilling to make the reality yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, talking about that. And I was just thinking, even the day of the wedding, I was not even sure. And I was like, what am I going to do? Cancel it? And the answer is yes, you cancel it. And I had cold feet. I was crying. I was like nervous. I was like, am I making the right decision? It is what it is.
Right? It brought you where you're supposed to be, right? The cool part about life is that there are lots of paths we can take to get to the growth, the transformation, the evolution that we're here to have in this lifetime. And both of ours included walking through that marriage path and walking through the divorce path, and then trying to figure out who the hell we were as single parents. Because I think that adds a lot of complexity in the healing journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to be honest with you, the leaving him part was that I knew, because, and I'm trying to be very careful with my words. I knew that he was going to fight for her in a way that, even though he didn't even, and I shouldn't say that he loved her, he loved my daughter, but he was going to be a dad. I'm going to be a dad. And I knew that my daughter, was going to have a hard time with that, because I was taking care of her all the time. I was the primary caretaker of my daughter. And he did exactly what I knew he was going to do. He did exactly what I feared. I didn't fear money, because I made more money than him at the time. I didn't fear, friends. We didn't have the same friends. I didn't fear, the housing. I feared what he was going to do, or how he was going to react with my daughter. And he did exactly that. She would be screaming, wanting her mother. He didn't care. He's the dad. He's got to have his time. And as much as I begged him, let me calm her down. Nope, he wouldn't listen to me. And that, I got to tell you, that is when I saw like the devil, like death, because here you're a mom and you can't console your kid crying, mommy, 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 mommy. And you can't stop him, because he would have called the police, and having to put my hands down and just like, in my head, okay, if I push him, he's going to call the police. If I just sit here, oh my God, I'm going to have to sit here. I'm going to have to sit here, and just trying to find that strength to sit here and just say, honey, it's going to be okay. It's good. And just looking at him like, how could you do that? That is where I really needed to do the therapy and find my empowerment, because I felt powerless.
I had a similar but different experience. I think my mommy heart, right? Divorce is hard on kids anyways. And it was really hard, similar to you. My son spent the majority of his time with me because of my ex-husband's work schedule. So he just had opposite schedules. I was primary caregiver, right? I laugh. My son will probably die when he ever hears this as he gets older. But, we're driving to, his daycare was at my work. And so we drive every day in the morning together and on the way home. And I was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he's like, when I grow up, I want to be a mommy just like you. And that was a moment that was really hard because I knew that the reason he said that is because he didn't have a good connection with his dad, right? He wasn't seeing what it meant to be a dad. He was so primarily only in my world. His dad worked weekends, so we were home solo all weekend together. I used to take my son to his dad's work just to eat dinner together. So I'd make dinner at home. I'd pack it all up. We'd roll into the retail store where he worked and we'd eat in the break room. And it just was that wake up call of like, oh, he needs to see him more, but he doesn't have that. So when the divorce hit, one of the biggest challenges is that his dad, similar, wanted full 50-50. And I have no problem with that as long as he was available. The challenge was his work schedule. He didn't work a traditional 9 to 5. He had to have a babysitter to cover these extra hours until he got home. And so I was having to turn my son over to a babysitter. And one of those times, it was like goosebumps anyways. I roll in. I didn't know I was turning him over to a babysitter. The babysitter pulled up at the same time at the dad's house. My son sees her car and he liked the babysitter. Nothing wrong with her. Loses his mind in the back seat of the car. And I'm having to pull him out, a screaming child out of the back car about, don't make me do this. Don't make me go there. Because he had big feelings too. Right? Everybody had big feelings. His dad had big feelings and wanted him 50% of the time, but it wasn't a reality. Kid had big feelings because life was just pure chaos at that point and he couldn't handle it. And I had big feelings because this was breaking my heart as a mom. And so for me, it was part of what I pushed back. And I was like, you can have him up to 50-50 as long as you are there. If you are not there, I will not turn him over to a babysitter again. And we switched, and luckily his dad was reasonable and understood that. And that was where we landed in our agreement. But that meant as a primary caregiver, I had a lot of those hours and my healing, it always hits at the worst time, doesn't it? It hits, when all of a sudden your child needs something and you just want to be in the kitchen crying it out because the wave of grief has come over you and you're trying to balance showing him that it's still okay because you do believe that, like I believed that it was going to be okay. Doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Doesn't mean there wasn't grief and sadness in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say that I didn't think it was going to be okay. I really didn't. I was scared. I was like, oh my God, he's going to mess her up. Like I was thinking, I was a former therapist. I was specifically with kids and I dealt with kids that went through divorce and he did not want to reason with me at all. And so then my mind is like, okay, so is it my responsibility to create this relationship between her and her father? Like, is that my job? And my therapist said, no, it's not. That ain't your job. Yes. That is not your job. And that was like, oh my God, how do I? But she's like, nope. You're on your journey. Your daughter is on her journey. And that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of women, a lot of moms, because I think that we want to create this great family life when you have a divorce. And what's to say that these experiences that are happening to your child is actually going to make them stronger?
Mic drop. Like, it's true. I think I agree because as the, female component in the relationship, you're more connected to the emotions. You're more connected to that parent-child relationship, right? The father's role a lot of times is the play, is the pushing them, is the expanding of boundaries. And the mom's role for, just traditional male-female roles is this sense of security and the emotional component and the like, it's going to be okay. That same lesson, that same awareness of I can no longer, one, control or two, be responsible for the relationship that my ex has with his son was a huge moment in changing the dynamics between us. Because a lot of our fighting and bickering was still because I was trying to push him to show up a certain way from a point of this is what our son needs. He's struggling right now. He's hurting. He needs you to be present. He needs you to invest in the things that he really likes. Like he wants to build a connection with you. And my ex and I would fight over that. And the day that I finally was like, it's not my job. And that scared the shit out of me because what was going to happen to my son? I couldn't protect him in this bubble anymore. I couldn't control how his parents showed up. And I had a shift into I cannot protect how the other world is going to treat him, but I can teach him how he can continue to show up. Huge shift in the dynamic and helped with a lot of that fear of what's going to happen to my child.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you're going to be there to console them. Like, and that was like my role. Okay. So when, my daughter was like, but why this and why that's okay. Now it's my job to say, okay, well, let's think about this. Let's put it in perspective. I mean, did she grow up really fast? Yes, unfortunately she did. But, I could still be that person that she can come to and talk about it. But then why does he do, being open with me? And to this day, she is very open with her feelings. She's going to get the opportunity in my home to say what she wants to say without judgment. And I'm going to create that space for her. She may not have that in other places, but I'm going to make that happen in my home. So, once I had that sense of, okay, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Because that's, it shakes you up. The divorce, like you just said, the dynamics, the roles. Okay, well, who am I? How do I do this? How am I a mom? And are we supposed to be doing the same things in the same time? You're not going to get that. I mean, lucky for those people who are get to do that. You're so lucky that fortunate that you get to do that, where, the kid is going to have different rules, different chores, different everything. And that's hard. It's hard for that kid, right? But the resilience is unbelievable. That when they are becoming an adult and they deal with challenges, they dealt with hard shit.
Yeah, they can roll with it. And I've seen that in my son. He's kind of like, whatever, whichever way, I can roll with it. The one that got me that I totally didn't think about was laundry detergent. Because, right, but it's these little things because I'm like, well, for 10 years, we used the same laundry detergent. Now that we're divorced, why would you change laundry detergents? And he did. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, your bed smells completely different. Because he would start coming back to my house and I'd be like, you stink. Like, what is this? And not bad stink, but like different laundry detergent. And 20 years in a plant-based essential oil beauty company, we don't use synthetic fragrances, products, nothing in my house. So in walks like Downy, and I can smell it everywhere. And I'm like, what is this? Oh my God. The smallest things that you think are always going to remain the same are different. And these kids experience it. We don't. We experience the other side of helping them be okay with it, of transition through it. And it's going to hurt and it's going to suck. And when you can create that safe space, like you've just shared, like, hey, your feelings are valid. We had a lot of conversations. Your feelings are valid, but you can't hurt somebody else. And you can't hurt me because you're upset about something. But like, I'll sit with you. I'll sit with you in the shit. You are not alone having to deal with this stuff.
Yeah. God. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was hard not to talk shit. Like that was another commitment I had to make. If I was going to shift in my parenting role into this, I wanted to make sure that I was never the one that caused any other tears in their relationship. which meant that I always stayed very neutral, very fact-based, and we talked a lot about hurt people hurt people. So when dad does something that really upsets you, maybe dad's having a rough day. Maybe work didn't go so well. We don't know. We don't know what's going on for dad. And so extending that grace, which you really don't want to do. You really don't want to do when they are fighting you in court or arguing with you via text message, but taking that higher road.
Yeah, and I love that you said because that's the same thing I say to my daughter, hurt people, hurt people. Like, she knows that. And, and that's with friendships and everybody else, they're hurting. Yeah. If you only knew every time he was in a bad mood and how I had to, kind of defend him in a way and say he had a bad freaking day and maybe he's going through some stuff and it's not about you. It's not about you. He's going through something. It has nothing to do with you. So yeah, again,
those 3 lessons, right? Hurt people hurt people. It is not about you, and it is safe to have your feelings. Like, write those down. If you've got kids and you're thinking about, I'm going to have to help them navigate this, those 3 core values that you embrace, that you teach to them, that's what really helps to shift. In fact, today, randomly, I reposted a reel to stories that was talking about the fact that it's not the divorce that impacts children long term. So the research study was done on children of divorce and how did they show up as adults? Were they successful in life? It was the conflict between the parents. The ongoing conflict between the parents is what causes the ruptures, the inability to deal with the feelings. So it's so important that, like, hey, the divorce is going to be a blip in their timeline. It's going to affect them for the rest of their life, just like it's going to affect you. If it continues, like, it is always part of my story, but it doesn't hurt me and it won't hurt them. But the ongoing fighting is what does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey there, it's Erica, your guide at the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I want to take a moment to express how much your feedback means to us. Your ratings, your reviews, they are like fuel for our journey together. They not only brighten our day, but they help other women find the support and the guidance they need. Leaving a rating and review is super easy, and it makes a world of difference. If you're listening on Spotify, simply scroll down to the bottom of the podcast page and then tap on rate. If you're tuning in on iTunes, head over to the podcast page, scroll down, and click on write a review. It only takes a minute, but it could help someone else find this podcast and change their life. Your voice matters. Your feedback helps us grow. So take a moment to share your thoughts and experiences. Together, we can help spread the word to support even more women. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Let's continue to support each other and make a difference, one review at a time. So the other part then is, because great, you're a single mom. Okay, you're doing all this amazing work to help your child, but you need to help you too. And so a similarity between the two of us when we were talking was that fitness, an aspect of fitness, became kind of our saving grace. I hated the gym. It, in fact, was my ex who got me signed up for the gym because it came with 2 free hours of childcare. And so he's like, I'm at work. Just go to, even if you just sit there in the cafe and drink a coffee, go to the gym. So I went. Eventually, somebody recruits you into boot camp. That was not the right fit. I land in what they called Alpha. So if you're familiar with Lifetime, the Lifetime brand, it's like a little bit of CrossFit, a little bit of Olympic lifting, but a hell of a lot of weights on that bar every week. And that became my saving grace. That became my second version of therapy. And you had a similar experience.
Yeah. So I went through therapy. I had to help myself, because if I was going to be this single mother, I felt like I had to work on me so that she had a mother that was in good mental space. So I remember, running was not something that running's hard. Like, running wasn't something that I was always doing. And I never really got into it until the divorce because it felt good. It was a way to release like all this anger and pain. And I've cried I've cried during running, and it's like the most cathartic feeling ever in the world. Like I'm like, if it's raining, that's great because no one knows I'm crying. But but it was a way to release and empower myself. So I almost used it as a companion to the therapy. Like I went to therapy, and then it was like, it's talk therapy. So something amazing happens with when you put things out and you're talking about it, and things start shifting. And it doesn't shift. And people think that it shifts at that therapy session. It doesn't always happen. It starts shifting after you let it out, and then you're going about your day, or even midweek, and you're like, oh my God, that thing I was telling them, that's when it shifts. So I was using a lot of what I was letting out in therapy with my running, and it became like I was doing meditative runs. I was doing mantras. Like every time, if I had to go to court, I would run the day before, and I would have this positive mantra as I'm saying it. I'm going to be okay. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I'm strong. Like I'm just doing that as I'm doing my runs. And I started showing my journey on social media, and it was mostly on Facebook, a little bit on Instagram. And I'm just like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just like, I'm just going to show people that I'm doing this, like, making my food, doing meal prepping and all that stuff. And women started reaching out to me and saying, oh my God, I want to do what you're doing. And I'm like, I'm just running. But people started asking me well, do you coach? Do you do this like full time? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, wow, maybe I could do this. So I wanted to be legit. Like, did I know how to do the running? Yes, I came from a medical background. I could have easily have done it, right? But I wanted to be legitimate. So I went and got my certification in running. And I started up with just meetup groups, like the free meetup groups. And I'll never forget, I remember telling my mother, no one's going to join. I remember the day that I opened that meetup group on Meetup. Everyone has Meetup. It's free. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to set it up. I'm like, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking, I'm like, oh God, no one's going to, here I'm looking. I just did it. No one's signing up. And then an hour later, I'm looking, I'm like, Mom, I don't think anyone's going to sign up. And then I literally forgot about it. And that week, people started joining. It started like 25, 50. I'm like, oh my God, all these people want to be part of this group, but people don't realize then you got to do the running then part because they joined the group. So I opened it on a weekend. I was so nervous, and I did open a run, a couch to 5K. I'm going to get you to run. And I'll never forget all these women showing up, and I'm like, oh my God. Like that was empowering me. I felt empowered while running, and it empowered me to empower others. Like that saying, empower women. That's no lie. Like you feel so powerful to share your journey and share, the things that you're learning about running to another woman, and her feeling empowered. Or when she's done and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Whew, powerful.
Yeah, I hate running, but I've done it. Similar. I didn't have your group, but there was, I'm working out, I'm lifting weights, I'm avoiding running as much as possible, but there's some running that has to happen in it, right? That we like get there and they're like, run 3 laps to warm up. And I'm like, but okay. So trying it, right? Trying to get there. And then there was a group, it's a nonprofit, and they do 5K-ishes. So they're kind of, sort of, right? And they always end at a brewery. You start and end at a brewery. And I was like, hey, one of the things I committed to in my divorce was retrying all the things that I had always said no to, and breweries were one of them. Like beer was not my thing. It made me really sick. I didn't really like the taste of it. So turns out it's because I only like dark beers like porters and stouts, like very different, right? Than Miller Lite and whatever else. And IPAs, I just can't handle those. But I was like, I can do this, right? Because I can walk. If nothing else, I can walk. But it was fun and it was an activity and it got me to go try it. And at the end of the first one, my son came, he biked along. So he's on like a freaking balance bike or something. Now I'm trying to run with my friend and we end up doing fine. Like I finished and I was like, I could do this again. I feel so good about myself because like in the moment, was I pissed? Was I frustrated? Was my mind going wild? You can't do this. Who do you think you are? Like, just quit, Erica. You don't have to do this. You can walk. And I'd be like, no, I'm doing it. I'm running. I can make this happen. It's just a couple miles, right? And then you finish it and you realize that all those negative stories that tried to hold you back, you got through them. And it felt so amazing to have accomplished that, to say, I can do this. And that was similar in weightlifting too, right? Like, can I, do this lift of my body weight? Can I double my body weight in this lift? And the breakdown sessions that would happen in the car afterwards, because there is a thing, you guys, I've talked about the book before, but The Body Keeps the Score. Have you read that book? Yeah. Just knowing that the talk therapy, right, it bubbles it all up. It gets it back to the front of the mind. But there is a thing about right, left processing, okay? Running right, left, right. The biggest challenge I have with running is definitely my mind. It tells me to quit. 30 seconds in, I'll be like, I crave running. Like I want to like more explosive energy instead of a walk. And I run like 3 houses and my mind's like, F that, walk, stop. But finding your thing, whatever it is, that is a challenge that physically helps you move the body, moves all the stuck stuff out.
Yeah. I mean that's why there's somatic therapy. I mean it moves. So when you're feeling stuck and you are like you don't know where to let it go, but when your body starts moving, it moves out. And that's kind of how I was, doing the runs. I was like, okay, we got to get this shit out. Like we got to move this. And I hold my stress like right here on my right shoulder, like right shoulder blade. And I know when I'm getting stressed, it starts like hurting, even though there's no pain. It's literally, it's psychosomatic that I am feeling that pain. I'm holding that stress. And then when I start running, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to move that. We're going to start moving that. It's going to go down to the forearm. It's going to go or down to the feet. I'm going to pound the shit out of it. Like that's therapy, therapy like I should say. But yes, there is something about movement that is going to help you get through those challenges. But you also said something that was interesting, that how you work out, how you run is very parallel to how you see life, how you work through life. How you are a runner. Do you tend to see it as do you tend to punish yourself when you don't get to that mile? Do you reward yourself? Well, now you're in a punishment reward system, right? And that that's something that you do in your life. So there's that parallel. And I realized that even as a therapist, I was realizing that. And I'm like, wait a minute, that we could really use running as a way to really help people release and heal and empower. And that's kind of how I just started I got my certification as a life coach. And I remember talking to this woman, and even though I was going through that, I remember talking to this woman and she goes, oh, you're not just a running coach, you're an empowerment coach. And I'm like, I never thought of myself that way. But yeah, you're empowering yourself, you're releasing, you're healing, and you're empowering.
Yeah, because at the end of it, you're like, I did that. I did the thing and I needed to do it. And in that first chapter, after, processing through like the separation, when I had to figure out who the F I was and could I get through this, that physical movement became my saving grace. It was a commitment I had made. It was people that I went and saw every week. It was people who were supporting you. We weren't talking about personal lives, but they're cheering you on. They want to see you succeed. That's the beauty of a fitness community. And I needed to prove to myself that I could do it. I talk about that it was like the warrior version of me. This warrior woman had to pick me up because a big part of me was still laying on the floor. And I had a child and I still had a life to live. And I needed that motivation. It's interesting now. I'm in a much softer space. And so I'm kind of exploring what this new chapter looks like, because I recently challenged myself. I was like, I got one more big hike in Colorado that I want to go do. And so I went to do the hike. So I was like, whatevs, this will be no problem. We're good. It kicked my ass. Oh my God. And it shouldn't have. But to what you just said, how you talk to yourself in life parallels how you talk to yourself when you're pushing yourself through these physical challenges. That's the same shit that came back up. You should just quit. You should just sit down. You should turn around. Who are you you can't do this. You can't do that. Right. And I was like, ooh, these little thoughts haven't been here for a while. So being able, one step at a time, right? 1 mile at a time. Or when I used to run, good Lord, it was literally one driveway. I was like, just run one more driveway, just run one more driveway, until I got to the point that I was running 1 mile. Okay. Because my, like, if you get into Ayurveda, right, in different systems, I'm a fire nature, hot, explosive, high intensity cardio causes so much stress in my body. It's not my jam. But I had set a goal, and little by little, I expanded my endurance, just like I expanded my emotional resiliency. The resiliency in my body expanded along with how I was pushing myself. So actually, the last question I have for you before you tell everybody where they can find you, if somebody is like, okay, maybe I should try this, what are some initial baby steps that they could go explore to see if running is that right modality to support them in their healing journey?
Yeah. So normally, if someone says to me, I want to try this, I don't know if this is for me, I want to get to know them. Like, I need to know, well, tell me a little bit about you, because it may not be for them, and it's okay. There's a ton of other things. Walking in nature is going to be healing as well. And just to get a sense of, how, are they looking to commit to something like this, or they're just going to half-ass it? In my mind, it gives me a sense of how to gear them in the right direction. So the first thing I often say, if it's somebody that's like, well, I don't know, and they're kind of 50-50, then just go out for a brisk walk in nature. Just go for a brisk walk, do a 20, that's all. Yes, no running, just do a brisk walk. How did that feel? Felt good. And then it's literally baby steps, because I want them to feel empowered and make those small steps are going to be celebratory. Oh, I was able to jog for 20 seconds. Oh my God, I never jogged before. I jogged 20 seconds and then I stopped and walked, and then I jogged for 20 seconds. I want more. Okay, 30 seconds, 45, a minute. And it's just, as it goes along, they want more and they want more. And then I'm like, okay, now we got them.
Right. But I agree with that too, because what happens is we jump all in and it overwhelms our body and it's too much. And especially if you're already going through a really stressful thing, your system is already heightened all the time, which means that your stress hormones are going, your metabolism is going crazy right now. You put another stressful thing on it, that's not always helpful. So you've got to get to that place of, ooh, I want a little more. I want to run. I brisk walk right now. And some days I'm like, oh, I just want to run. I just want to move faster.
Yeah. And it's a journey. And that's the other thing. I say to them, this is really a journey, and you're racing for what? Why are we rushing this? The slower you go, you're going to then be able to go faster and or longer and just enjoy this journey. So it's definitely the baby steps. And I just love the journey. The aspect of it being a journey is just, to me, the ebb and flows of life. Like there's going to be some terrible runs because that's life, right? And then there's going to be some amazing runs because that's life. And when they can create these coping strategies and skills as they're running, you better believe they're using those same strategies when it comes to life.
Yes. I think the first time I had to use those strategies, I was climbing Mount Rainier on a whim. And I'm halfway up the mountain bawling because it was a push and it got those things out. And it was the same coping, the music went on, control your breathing, focus on the music, focus on the joy, right? Like one step at a time. I love that. So you host not only one, but two podcasts. So let's make sure our listeners know where they can also learn more and hear more and connect more from you, because especially if you are interested in picking up and exploring running as a tool, Lisa is a great resource for that.
Yeah. So Ella Go, and the tagline is Ella Go, empowering women through fitness, health, and everything in between. And obviously the everything in between is the mental health, the emotional health, because that's not only is that my jam, but that's what's going to keep you going. So it's fitness, it's, talking about nutrition, healthy eating, and of course, women talking about their challenges and overcoming very challenging events in their lives. And it's empowering women. Like all of that's going to empower women. So I wanted to do something a little bit dark comedy, but giving information to women as well, and helping them go through their single life journey, single mom journey, single woman journey. And I thought of this podcast idea and the name Mom is My Emergency Contact, because mom is my emergency contact. I don't have anybody. She is my emergency contact. So Mom is My Emergency Contact is, yes, we're going to have those serious conversations, women going through really tough things and overcoming them, and giving you some nuggets on what you need to, how did they overcome, and giving you nuggets on how you too can overcome those things. But then there's going to be some humor, and there's going to be some, fun things and empowering things. And I want women to just know that it's okay to be a single mom. It's okay to be single. There's something very empowering. You can choose to be with somebody, but also be okay with being yourself and just feeling this power. And that's really what the basis of Mom is My Emergency Contact podcast is all about.
I love that, because you don't have to. Here's my thing. I was very empowered as a single parent, and I did a lot of things, and I loved the life that I built. And I knew that eventually I wanted to move into partnership, but it meant that I had to find the right partner. And to be able to do that, I had to stay true to myself, and I had to not just settle and move in, because it doesn't just impact me. Now it impacts my child. And is that the good role model? And so you can choose to stay single. You can choose to be in partnership. You can go either way and still lead a very healthy and happy life. And the core of either of those is being empowered and self-confident. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. You guys, I will have all the links for both podcast shows as well as Lisa's Instagram handle so that you can find her. They're in the show notes. They're also on the blog post about the episode at thecrazyexwivesclub.com. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your story and for helping to empower other listeners. So until next week, you guys, give yourself grace. Go for a brisk walk. Try it out. See if that fits for you. And we'll be back next week with another episode. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.